Second. Thanks, Ransom. Tom adjusted himself on the wooden folding chair, guiding his shoulder blades down his back and telling himself to feel his belly soften with breath. David and Christy were exchanging their vows, or maybe they were about to. Tom couldn't tell. It wasn't his first Hebrew wedding ceremony, but this one seemed mysterious and indecipherable. He spotted Doug McBain a few rows before him, turning his square head this way and that, looking for someone, or maybe taking inventory in general. Last wedding, there'd been a slew of them this summer. Doug had gotten trashed at the reception, and Tom had had to drive him back to his hotel. The whole long way there, his previous college roommates tortured laments, filling the small space of the rented compact. Almost 40, he'd cried. And now I have to start over? Doug's wife had left him just weeks before that wedding. Of course, the guy's feelings were raw. Still, Tom planned to keep his contact with Doug to a minimum tonight. He looked down at his knees, careful to avoid Doug's sweeping gaze. At last, there was the breaking of the glass, and everyone headed to the large white barn for the reception. Tom hurried to catch up with Linda, whose arm interlaced with Carrie's. Linda wore a sleeveless navy blue sheath which showed off her pregnant belly. Elegant, Tom told her. They'd embraced, and now he stood appraising her. He still held her forearm and hesitated to let go. Linda's golden brown skin was pure warmth, and he remembered how it had once felt, the heat of the entirety of her naked body. Adventurous interludes, their college days, when they'd been in between lovers, and sometimes when they weren't. Linda released herself from him and clasped hands with Carrie, and Tom found himself wishing he'd brought Beth, after all. "You're looking well, Carrie," he told the tall blonde, and he meant it. Carrie's face looked nearly as radiant as her wife's. How had the two women decided Linda would be the one to carry the baby, he wondered. Was that the kind of question he could ask? He contemplated. Did he really care about the answer? Inside the barn, more Hebrew. There was Serena, ex-girlfriend number 2. She smiled at him from across the room. He remembered her full lips, the way they had seemed to pout when she was listening intently. As with Linda, Serena had found Tom mostly a side affair, while she'd been more steadily involved with a bear-like guy who'd had red hair and a full beard. He'd had a nickname, maybe Irish, Tom thought, who Serena had eventually married. Irish was gone now, replaced by an Indian, handsome enough to dance in a Bollywood musical. The man, pressed close to Serena's side, met Tom's eye and nodded. David and Christy, in their chairs, had been hoisted up into the air, and the crowd surged around them as the band played Ava Nagila. They were each grasping an end of a handkerchief. Someone squeezed Tom around the waist. Emma. She looked beautiful, if not softly maternal, and Tom pushed back down the rush that rose straight up through him. How had he not noticed before how much she and Beth resembled one another? Emma was tugging him away from the raucous celebration, and he followed her to the bar. She wore a flowered dress that would have been dowdy on anyone else. He forced his eyes down, and they came to rest on her calves. She must have been one of the only women present who wasn't wearing heels, but her legs were extraordinary in the flat shoes, muscled, lithe like a dancer's. "Where's your girl?" she asked, handing him a flute of champagne. He tipped the glass to his mouth, but she caught him, her hand on his forearm, crying, "Wait, a toast?" "To what, then?" he asked. "To no longer lactating," Emma laughed. That took Tom's eyes immediately to Emma's breasts. He forced his attention away, clinked his glass to hers, and drank. Emma said, "I was just kidding," but she had also taken a quick drink. Now she reached out with her glass and gently tapped it to his. "To you, and to seeing you again." She looked at Tom as she sipped. Her eyes were still the strangest, most compelling shade of violet. She said, "I won't lie, though. I have been counting down the days until I could have a drink again. It's been almost 4 years." Tom tried to remember the ages of her 2 children. He waited to feel pangs of regret. He should, shouldn't he? He wanted to, didn't he? None came. "So, how are the kids?" he said. "I trust wonderful." Emma nodded, but said they ought to talk about something else. She wanted to be a free woman that evening. "You didn't answer me back there," she said. They were now watching the dance floor. Tom knew what Emma was asking about, but he didn't feel like talking about Beth. He wasn't entirely sure why he hadn't brought her. Only a certain kind of woman would be able to take it, he thought, being in this place where so many of his ex-girlfriends were gathered. A secure woman. A woman secure in who she was to Tom. "Beth and I aren't close enough. Yet," Tom told Emma. He shrugged casually. "But you will be," Emma said. She smiled but looked out across the dance floor. Of all of his exes, Tom could have married Emma. He'd thought he wanted to. So had she. Maybe he had. He'd wanted to want to. "That's how you are." Emma spoke so softly she shouldn't have been able to hear her words. He shouldn't have been able to hear her words under the music. That was how he was. Devoted to each new woman until he wasn't. He didn't understand it. He agonized over it, the ends of the relationships. "This is going straight to my head," Emma said. "Let's sit." She made for a nearby table, pulling the white cloth askew as she settled into a chair. Where was her husband? Thank you.